But essentially, a credit default swap is an insurance contract against default of a certain entity. Okay? And they were the primary reason why AIG went down. AIG being an insurance company, and they figured we know insurance, so how about we go ahead and sell all sorts of insurance contracts to people. So they sold credit default swaps on mortgage-backed securities, on subprime stuff. And the trouble with it is a regular insurance contract and an insurance contract on default. The underlying notion behind pricing of a life or property or casualty kind of stuff based on uncorrelated risks. So if I sell you a car insurance, collision, the chances of you having an accident and Clay having an accident are completely independent, unless you're doing drag racing together. Okay, so over a very large pool, even those kind of can be ignored. In fact, insurance companies are in the business of not taking risk, but actually pooling risk with people. They take those million people and say, individually, you have a lot of risk. Okay, it's a 0-1 event. You either don't have an accident, or if you do, you're gonna have to pay $10,000 for damages. I'm simplifying things. Obviously, there's a distribution to damages, but let's make it simple. It's a very risky thing for one person. It's like health insurance. If you don't buy health insurance, you're good. But if you get sick, suddenly you need it, right? It costs you a lot of money, especially given the US healthcare system. But if the chances that I'm going to get into an accident are not related to chances of you're going to get into an accident, I can pull that risk and reduce the risk per person. That's kind of the little table we have done when we first started this. With a large enough pool, you almost have no risk as an insurance company. You add on top of that your profit margin and stuff, you sell it that way. They are actually, technically speaking, in a service business. What's the difference between car insurance and company defaults? Let's say I sold credit default swaps for 2,000 different companies, which means I sold insurance. What's the main difference between accident insurance and default insurance? It's not about that. I mean, you can estimate what the cost is. Based on that, you can charge the proper amount. That's not a problem in and of itself. The difference is correlation of the hazards. Okay, when I say car insurance, there is almost no correlation between different subjects. And when a pool is not correlated, I don't know if they ever mentioned to you in your stats class, one of the fundamental theorems of statistics is called the law of large numbers. It basically eliminates the average is almost has no risk compared to the individual ones. But this happens when the correlation is absent or very low. But if those individual hazards are correlated, law of large numbers cannot operate anymore. And that correlation comes from common macroeconomic risk. We know what happened in 2008. For whatever reasons, we can discuss that for 2 years and not agree on it, but the economy collapsed. Okay? When the economy collapses, everybody collapses together to some degree. So if I sold a credit default swap to real estate, obviously that collapsed. But credit default swaps to automotive companies, especially the American automotive companies, they collapsed too. Financial sector, Lehman, Bear Stearns, they collapsed. It all happened at the same time. That's why AIG was technically bankrupt. The only reason it wasn't allowed to, if AIG went bankrupt, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley all would have gone bankrupt. And if that happens, the Third World War would have started. Great Depression would have been a picnic compared to that. That's why Treasury had to save AIG, because they had sold all these, and these guys were waiting for those protections because they had those securities, and they figure if things go bad, AIG is going to make us whole. That's what a credit default swap is. Let's say they're also very common on sovereign risk. Uh, let's see. CNBC actually had a link for that for a while. And I'm going to let you guys go after this. Okay. All right. Let's just look at it. Uh, CDS for Turkey, for example. Turkey has a lot of bonds that are denominated in US dollars and euros. Let's look at the historical data. Currently, it's about 290 basis points. Here's what that means. These are typically 5-year contracts. You own a bond of Turkey, okay? And you say, I am concerned that they may not be able to pay. Now you come to me, I am the dealer in credit default swaps, and we do a deal. Here's the deal. Every year, let's say you have $1 million worth of stuff. Every year you're going to pay me $30,000, okay, for 5 years. In return, if and only if Turkey defaults, according to a very strict legal definition, I'm going to take your bonds from you, and I'm going to give you $1 million. What I do with those bonds after that is my business. Okay? That's what a credit default swap is. It is like insurance, right? What happens when your car is totaled? The insurance company gets the car, they do whatever they do with it. They give you the agreed upon value. Done. Basically, this is default is totaling of the car. And these are very actively traded, and they vary over time quite a bit. Come on. Stop seeing this ad. Yeah, we can look at it. Compared to 1 year ago, it was as high as 702. There was a presidential election in end of May, and if the existing president had lost the election, more than likely there would have been real issues with the economy. Not necessarily because the new guys are bad, but there were a lot of problems, and by the time new guys can handle it, the economy would have been in a shock. But now that that's passed over, it came down. So you can actually trade these things. Obviously individually you can't do it, but if I was a fund manager, actually I would have done an ETF with just credit default swaps. I would buy this. I would have definitely bought these at 700, or in this case, sold them. And when you buy it back at 400, you make money. You don't even have to wait for the default to happen or not to happen. Just because default probabilities went down, you make money on these deals. And you don't even put much money. To control a $1 million thing, you only put $30,000 a year. I'm going to stop here because I have an exam after this class, which means I have to go smoke. And those guys, this is my first exam since COVID days. in class exam on the basic finance. You guys were lucky. You didn't have to do it. I'll see you guys Tuesday.